How's it going, everybody? It's Ben here from the Pride of Villa, and I thought I'd bring you my instant match reaction to Aston Villa 1, Brighton 0. Aston Villa finally win a home game in the Premier League after such a long, drawn-out dross game, and we finally see 3 points come back to Villa Park as we continue our momentum towards the Champions League positions. And wow, what an interesting game of football that was. Simply put, absolute dross for 85 minutes of that game. It was absolute dross. Second half, I have no idea how to describe it, but it's probably the messiest game of football I've ever seen played. From both sets of teams, but looking at Aston Villa, is the messiest, dysfunctional, and unorthodox. Like, it's so many words you could describe that game with, and it was absolutely appalling to watch for the most part. But ultimately, Villa did the job. They dug in, we got a goal, and we've got a clean sheet as well. That's something that can go on the records as well. But it's the 3 points that mattered. It didn't matter realistically how it comes. It doesn't matter how we play. As long as we get 3 points, which is ultimately what we're there for, that's all I'm going to look forward to. That's all I'm going to look about. We got the 3 points. Let's focus on that. Let's move past the performance, and let's just go on from there. Team news-wise, it was very interesting to see. Obviously, no Matty Cash today. Confirmation that he has got knee inflammation. However, he does set to be back for the Leeds United game next week. So it does mean he was only missing tonight and Newcastle's FA Cup game. So it meant Bogard playing at right back, which I don't particularly like. I think it clearly shows when we're missing out key players like him, Tielemans, McGinn. You know, those sources of outlet, you know, we look like we struggle so much, and it was so evident tonight. Luiz had a poor game this evening. The amount of balls that he was just mis-spraying, compared to the Luiz that we saw on that first return debut game, he just looks a bit of a mess. Didn't need to watch. And it's just, we looked composed in the first half, in the first 20 minutes. Nothing really to sit there and say, you know, write home about. Just a bit composed, but nothing really of style. You can see that Brighton were putting up a nice physical attribute in the midfield, that much so that Baleba got booked within 2 minutes. He was taken off then for James Milner, which for a player that was meant to be, you know, high hopes that Manchester United were signing, see them have to make changes to their midfield already because of that booking. It's very interesting. Going to the first half, nothing really of note. The odd shot here and there for Brighton and Aston Villa, but nothing really going off from there. Then, as the game went on and substitutions were made, it just went further and further and further down in quality. I have no word to describe it. In fairness, it felt like a very even game when reflecting on it. You know, we'd see both sets of midfields, you know, try and compete out one another. Physical prowess all over the pitch, but nothing really of quality from either team. And it looked like from the first half where Aston Villa were putting in more shots on target and more attempts, it then went over to Brighton who were putting in more shots and attempts. And you just sat there and thought, the longest game goes out and the goal isn't scored, you know Brighton are just going to come back and win the game. And apart from the odd shot that we saw from, I think it was the left back that plays for them, yeah, I'm going to say that. Nothing again. Brighton weren't really doing much. That Aston Villa weren't easily maintaining defensively, but it just came from midfield. Like, you can sit there and see that Bogard just doesn't bring it going forward. He doesn't have that same quality that Matty Cash has at right back this season. Onana lacks a creative bone in his body. It's just so infuriating to watch. And just that whole right-hand side just didn't really felt like he was getting going tonight. I think Morgan Rogers had probably one of the poorest games. Not because of just, you know, his just general performance not being up to standard, but because he was so isolated in the game, which I think was a detriment to how well Brighton's, you know, game plan was. It was trying to overload that midfield. There was clearly a lot of bodies put onto the wide players so that there was a lot less creative outlet from there. And I just think the way they managed to shut down our midfield really well and really isolate players like Morgan Rogers and Doug Suisse in the centre of the pitch. Bear in mind, your two creative outlets for the team in a position that Aston Villa love to use. It did work really well for them. It just felt like, though, as the time got on, the game got messier. Everybody's standards were dropping. They were so desperate for that goal that obviously Aston Villa would ultimately take advantage of it with the corner. Leon Bailey brings it in. Mings is there to nod it home. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. I think he had a really rock-solid game tonight. Just watching him and Konza in that back line. Yes, we know sometimes that Tyrone Mings cannot be the best defender at all times and will eventually need to be, you know, having discussions about who's going to replace him. But let's enjoy it for what it was this evening. I thought he was probably the strongest defensive player that we had in that back line. He was just mopping up all the balls. Every time that Maatsen needed a bit of support or cover on that left-hand side, he was there to help provide that. And just his general performance across 90 minutes, you could see the worth ethic, you could see the mentality that was going in from him. There was a lot of desire and drive for him to go and, you know, clear up those balls. And he did really well. It just felt like, though, for the rest of the pitch, there's not really else much you can say. Creatively, we weren't doing enough going forward. Ollie Watkins didn't really contribute much to the game. Like I said, Morgan Rogers faded a lot into it. You know, Leon Bailey and Sancho coming on didn't really help the game either. I thought that Leon Bailey just looked so incredibly poor, just not really maximising enough of those minutes, and just getting bullied way too easily off the ball. Obviously, I thought Barkley coming on really did change a little bit of something, really, or it just felt like when we made those substitutions with those set of players, the sense of football that we do, this slow, possessive, heavy football, went out the window. We turned up the pace and tempo a little bit more, and I think that's where it's suited. And if I'm going to be critical tonight, I'm going to look at Emery for those tactics, because I'm sitting there and thinking, this slow, progressive style of football in a game that was a must-win for a lot of the Villa fans, and probably for Villa themselves in the sense of achieving that momentum to continue on in top four. To see us play slow, detergent football against a Brighton team who are in their knees at the moment, I just think it's ridiculous to see. Why are we playing such slow football? The energy's there, the momentum on the pitch is there. Why are we playing slow, lethargic football? Just get the ball up, maximise your players' wide width, and go for it. Not this slow, detergent football in a midfield battle that we're not winning because we're getting overrun and over-competed in. So it's just very frustrating there. But like I said, Villa ultimately did their job. They got the 3 points, and that's all that matters for me going ahead into the next few games. Now, obviously, that does mean we're now 5 points ahead of Manchester United following their draw against West Ham away. Obviously, Chelsea with 44 points there, so it's still a comfortable gap. But with 3 points, it starts to look a little bit clearer. 6 points behind Arsenal at the moment, 3 points behind Manchester City. We look forward to Leeds and Wolverhampton Wanderers in the Premier League next, but ultimately the next game being that FA Cup game against Newcastle United. It'll be interesting to see the rotation that we go with there. Maybe see some younger names. I'm hoping Tammy Abraham gets a start and actually gets to play a lot more 90 minutes. Probably Leon Bailey. We saw Alisson make his debut this evening, which, you know, for the minutes that he had, didn't really contribute a fat lot. But then again, we don't really maximise or utilise the left-hand side of our wide widths or our wider channels anyway. So can't really say much of him. Like I said, when Barkley came on, you just felt the energy and that overall urgency to go forward changed. A lot more desire to push the ball up, and I felt that as well. Even in those dying minutes when we're taking a corner, he's still going for a shot. I can feel that urgency from him, and that's what I like to see. That's what I like to see when the game needs that flick of a switch. I think he brought that as well today. Douglas Luiz had probably a poor game as well. Like I said, so many misread balls. It'll take time for him. Bear in mind, he's trying to fill a role he's not going to fill in Yuri Tielemans' case. But again, I'm not going to complain because he needs a bit more time. Although he knows the system already. He's played it. Like I said, for me, man, the match definitely Tyrone Mings. He got the goal, but just from a defensive standpoint, he really brought it today and really helped clear up those back lines when we were under pressure from Brighton. But anyway, that's been my match reaction. I hope you have enjoyed the game as well, guys. Well, try to enjoy the game because it was absolutely dross. I don't know why I said that. If you did enjoy this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel. We will see you for the Newcastle game, and I'll have our reactions there. But until then, up the Villa with the pride of Villa, 3 points in the bag. Come on.